Shiv is currently running rampant all over Deadlock servers, and so are a number of other heroes. So, what's currently the most powerful heroes, and how can you use them to win games, or how can you counter them? Let's talk about the current state of the meta in Deadlock. First of all, here's a tier list that I made recently on stream. Now, ever since I made the tier list, I've amended it and made a couple changes to it, so don't be surprised if there's a few changes from what you saw live if you were watching my stream. I mostly moved some heroes up or down a tier. For example, I moved Vindicta into S tier because I may have underestimated a little bit. I moved Wraith up a tier. I also moved Sinclair up a tier, I believe, and probably some other changes. As far as the actual ordering of the tier list, like where the heroes are positioned compared to one another, don't pay too much attention to that, as I didn't really like order them one after the other. Like I think it's, for example, I think it's really hard to like order heroes within A tier, right? Like, okay, which hero within A tier is better than another one? But you know, there's a few that may have made it into S tier, and as always with any tier list, just keep in mind that it's all relative at the end of the day, right? And you could very easily argue like, hey, this character shouldn't be A, it should be S, etc. But I believe that generally speaking, this is a pretty accurate grasp on the meta. Now, I do want to say this tier list is meant for pubs. It's not meant for competitive play necessarily. I am, however, still taking into account the fact that the player that would be playing the hero is good at the hero, right? So, for example, with Sinclair, at lower rank, Sinclair is really, really bad because people are not able to pilot the hero because he's a hard hero. But I believe that he's still a good hero. He's just hard to pilot, for example, right? With that being said, let's talk about the place in the meta of a certain few heroes, as well as what the current like meta builds are for them. We'll start with 7. So the thing with 7 right now is I'll recommend a few builds. I'll put some screenshots of the builds on the screen as I'm talking. But 7 was already pretty decent. He was only not that strong in competitive play because of the importance of the laning stage. But for the average player in pubs especially, you know, 7 was already kind of like a menace, I would say. And then with the spirit changes, he got buffed very significantly, and now he does a lot more damage. And on top of that, since the meta shifted to a bit more spirit, right, the value of 7 overall went up, and that's because on his third ability, he has 15% spirit shred when you put 1 point in it. As far as the actual builds that are good on 7, I honestly believe that you can build a lot of different ways and that they're all like quite good at the moment. For example, if you want to go into like full ult 7 build where you max ult really early, you go for an early unstoppable and you play purely around your ult, I believe that playstyle is great. I also believe right now that if you build around power surge, that playstyle is also good, right? And you can also like max ball first or second, and you can also make that work. So there's really a lot of ways where you can play, 7 that works. So I'll put some screenshots of some builds, and yeah. Now let's talk about Shiv a little bit. Shiv at this point, I feel like, I mean, I made a video on Shiv a few months ago, and it feels like it always kind of comes up, you know? But with Shiv, really the issue, there's a lot of issues with Shiv, and you know, he tends to always manage to somehow like, you know, come out on top, and even when there's patches where his win rate isn't even that high, somehow his win rate is always kind of low. So clearly, you know, people are not very good at piloting him, or they're not building him correctly. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but right now I think he's like one of the strongest heroes in the game, even if his win rate doesn't necessarily indicate that as much as certain other heroes. But yeah, he feels exceptionally strong at the moment, and I've seen a lot of comments that are like, people are like, hey, we should remove bloodletting from the game. Some people are suggesting, hey, rage should work differently. Other people are suggesting, hey, his execute should be flat damage. Some people are suggesting his execute should not refresh, essentially. And while some of these changes might be good, the reality is there are a lot of ways to fix Shiv. Now, without talking further about the balance, there's also a few ways to abuse Shiv currently, so I'll put 2 examples of builds on the screen. The first one would probably be like a more weapon-focused build. I believe Together usually does stuff like that, and the second one would be a more spirit-focused build. Right, so having something like Arctic Blast, Cold Front, Warpstone, just kind of getting in there, playing around your dash, and I believe that both of these builds are perfectly viable for Shiv at the moment, although I may give a slight edge to the weapon one, but they're probably both perfectly viable. Now, talking about Abrams, I put Abrams in S tier. I know certain people don't agree with me on this one. I'm not going to change it. I did speak to some Abrams players, for example, Lonaw, and he said that he thinks he's more A tier than S tier, and that's primarily because of his laning stage. Lonaw agrees that in the mid-game, Abrams is, you know, completely dominant, but that his laning stage kind of sucks, and that is true. However, I believe that in pubs, on average, especially if you're good at Abrams, and for the large majority of players, people aren't good enough at punishing Abrams in lane for that downside to be significant, right? So I think Abrams is S tier. And as far as the build, I'd recommend you guys check out a few different builds. Generally speaking, the build is around having some mobility and maxing Siphon life, which then allows you to be kind of a monster in the mid game. So I'll post 2 build ideas that you can try out as well. You'll see the images on screen. But, you know, the idea behind these builds is essentially the same thing. And it's you have the mid game power spike, and the itemization can differ slightly. But it's really about just fighting people a bunch. And this hero just feels like really unkillable once he gets going. Now, the 4th S tier hero that I put is Mirage. Mirage, once again, is a little bit like Shiv in the sense that it feels like Mirage has pretty much never, like, disappeared, you know what I mean? Every time something happens in the meta, some change happens, it kind of just feels like Mirage is barely impacted by it. And then he just, like, comes back and he's totally fine. So this patch is a great example. Mirage was not really impacted much by this patch. He got a very, very slight nerf on his Jinsmark range, which is now 45 meters. If it's further than 45 meters, Jinsmark does not apply, which is a nerf. Yes, it is in the right direction, but it's not anywhere near enough to make Mirage more manageable. Now, there are answers to Mirage, right? Such as items like Suppressor, items that are, you know, anti-weapon heroes in the general. However, it does feel like Mirage is still oppressive, and now with Restorative Shot also being extremely strong, it does feel like Mirage is just very hard to deal with in lane. Because with Restorative Shot and Mystic Regen, it feels like if you can't burst him down from 100 to 0, you're just never going to kill him, and he's just eventually going to whittle you down, and you will die. His global ultimate is also still very, very strong, and that's why I think he's still a very solid S tier hero for me. Last but not least, the last S tier hero that I put personally is Vindicta. Now, this is actually a hero that I ranked up from A tier to S tier. I think that a combination of things make it so that she's S tier. I already think that she was very, very strong in the first place, and also this is a pub tier list, right? So Vindicta does get countered a little bit more in organized play because you can counter pick with draft, right? You can pick heroes like Lash, like Haze, etc., and try to focus her, get her out of the sky. But in pubs, generally, you're not going to be able to counter her very well, and the double stake is just incredibly oppressive. Her laning stage is strong. Bro is still just a ridiculous abomination of an ability, really, and I believe that she's easily S tier. Maybe not as strong as some of the other heroes. I don't know if she is quite on the same level, but I think a good Vindicta can really, really, like, shine. And that's why I put her in S tier. As far as builds to go, once again, I'll put some examples. But generally, you can go more like spirit-based, and going more around the debuffs and playing around the double tether, I believe, is the best way to play her. Not only do you do a lot of damage, right, but you're also a ton of utility for your team. Now, talking about some items, I believe some items that are outliers from the patch are Restorative Shot. Restorative Shot, this item is incredibly powerful at the moment. 50 healing from heroes. If you hit it off cooldown on heroes, it gives you a total of 8.3 HP regen. And if you hit it off cooldown on NPCs, it gives you a little bit over 3 HP regen, right? So if you're just hitting it off cooldown, it's literally better than extra regen. And extra regen does not give you weapon damage on top of that. Restorative Shot gives you 8% weapon damage plus the weapon investment, which if it's your first weapon item, gives you an additional 7%. So you can view it as a total of 15% weapon damage. This item is very overtuned. I think it was fine before, and now it's definitely just like overtuned. They probably saw the buy rate decrease significantly and decided to buff it. I believe that it's very likely to be reverted and to be nerfed again, since people realize, hey, this item is still insanely powerful. The next item I'd like to highlight is Counterspell. Counterspell was already a good item, but it is now just completely insane. 20-second cooldown, gives you 8 spirit power, 100 health. It heals you when you parry a spell, gives you spirit power for 6 seconds, and move speed. It kind of just does everything, and at the same time, when you like think about the spells that you can block, it has unbelievable value, right? You can block Lash ult, you can block Infernus ult, Wraith ult. I mean, there's so many ultimates, even Mo and Krill ults. So many ultimates that you can block with this, and also just abilities that completely define a hero's kit. And one thing a lot of people that I see don't understand about this item is that it makes you immune during the spell parry duration, which is 1 second. So any spell that is used during that 1 second, you are fully immune to, right? So what I mean is, if Pocket uses his full combo on you and you parry, if his combo is less than 1 second, you're going to block all of it, right? So you can easily block hundreds, if not like over 1,000 damage with this. And it's also exceptionally strong when you're in mid-boss to secure the crystal, because you can just stand on top of it, you can counterspell, and that way no stun will actually hit you, right? If you get IV Stone Form, it doesn't matter, you can counterspell it. So it's also a very, very strong mid-boss item as well. And I think that this item is, you know, incredibly powerful and should be bought on almost every hero in a lot of games. I'd also like to talk a little bit about Spirit Rend. Now, I don't think that this item really got changed much, if I recall. But one thing that I do want to say is that with how, you know, with the fact that we are in a bit more of a Spirit meta, and also how common Spirit Resist is, Spirit Rend is an incredibly valuable purchase. Now, with Spirit, with Shred in general, the more resist they have, the more valuable Shred becomes because of how damage is calculated. So generally, I would not buy this item very early, but once you notice a lot of your opponents have 20 to 30% Spirit Resist, Spirit Rend becomes a very, very valuable purchase. You can also buy 2 of them on the same team. I would maybe consider 3, but I think anything above 3 would be overkill because landing the headshots on them stacks separately. So the max stack is still the same, I believe. I haven't actually tested this extensively, so please feel free to correct me in the comments if I'm spreading misinformation. But as far as I understand it, if you have 2 people that shoot Spirit Rend at a person, right, it'll just stack it further. It'll ignore the 2.5 second cooldown. I believe that the max stacks on the person does not change, so it's still only a maximum of 4. But if you have 2 people shooting him, you'll get to the max stacks much faster, so the shred will be faster. When you think about it, as soon as you get 2 headshots on a target, it's more shred than crippling headshot for spirit damage specifically, on top of the little bit of lifesteal that it gives you. So it's a very strong item. That's it for my quick little discussion. I'm working on a few videos. I'm so sorry for the lack of upload. There's been a lot of things that I've been working on, particularly at Death Slam events. We've got some exciting news coming up for you as well, so stay tuned for that. But thank you guys so much for watching and for your support. You know, catch me live on my stream as always. And if you guys want to support the channel, look in the description. I've listed a couple ways to help support. Thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful day.